Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. This is the first daily medicine transmission of 2022. So welcome back, everyone, and welcome if you're new to this channel. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. One of the things that I said when I posted the link to the stream today is it's the first transmission of 2022 according to our Gregorian calendar. So who knows what year it actually is, because time is not what we have been told that it is, and it seems to be very cyclical rather than a linear progression. So in that sense, time is kind of an illusion, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot here that we don't really know, do we? So that's one particular, I guess you could call it a rabbit hole at this point, that I have been allowing myself to peer down into, is the idea that our history is not what we've been led to believe, and not so much actual events and whose perspective, but actual history itself, and big chunks of it being either added in year wise, right? We're either in a lot less of we're in a different time than maybe we have been taught to believe that we are. So anyway, who knows what year it is, but we do have a collective appreciation, and certainly a collective understanding that we've moved into a new cycle. So it's January 3rd, and we just had our new moon in Capricorn yesterday. So there is a lot of new energy that is swirling around right now. So we have intuitive reading to go over. We have some astrology to go over today. The moon is still in Capricorn for the moment. It's going to move into Aquarius today. Mercury is now in Aquarius. Jupiter is going to square the nodes, and the North Node officially is going to come into conjunction with Alcyon. So today also is the beginning of this Pleiadian revival that I've been talking about, and we'll be reporting on very, very soon. So just a couple of quick announcements here before we get into the actual transmission itself. I have some things in the works. There's going to be some transitions, moving away from certain platforms, moving towards other platforms. So one of the things is that I'm going to be leaving Facebook. So if that is your main connecting point for social media, you may want to consider other avenues. I'm going to be primarily focused on Telegram in terms of social media. I'm going to be moving away from the streams, away from YouTube, not so much the content. There'll still be content on YouTube, but the streams, I have a new show that I'm working on, and it's all going to move over to Twitch very soon. So if the streams are what you value and you want to be a part of that process, Twitch is actually set up exclusively for streaming content. The whole platform is meant to support the streamer in a lot of different ways. And so I'm just going to be moving all of the streams there. BitChute, of course, I'm still going to be very active. I have the most traction on BitChute, actually. So I'm still going to be putting all the recordings of everything onto BitChute, and I will be uploading content to YouTube, but I'm really moving away. It just has not been kind to me and my particular platform, the way that I want to be organized and the way that I want to give material and content and the way I want to present it. It's just not very amenable to that process. So I'm going to be moving away from those platforms, and I'll let you know as it's going to happen. I'll still keep Facebook Messenger. So if there are those of you, I know I have people who are here and who are clients and our friends who that's our primary mode of communication. I'll still have Messenger. I'll still be able to communicate through that way, but you may want to consider getting on my email list, because I'm going to start using that more. And of course, Telegram is going to be where I am the most active for social media. I want to move away from a lot of these platforms. So, and there'll be more announcements soon. I have a new show that I'm going to be starting to do on Twitch that I will unveil when it's time. Just there's a lot of change happening. And the will to unearth what has permanent value is a big part of today's transmission. Of course, it's the title of the transmission. It is the Sabian symbol where the sun in Capricorn is today, about being able to excavate and unearth what has permanent value, and specifically along with that, what the will to not only unearth what has permanent value culturally, right? We are talking about Capricorn here. So we're talking about institutions, we're talking about culture, social traditions, the very institutions that make up the security and the fortress that we identify as our society or our reality, but also to be able to get rid of non-essentials. So we had our new moon yesterday in Capricorn as well, and the entire lead up to this new moon, at least from this perspective on this channel and in the way that I channel the astrology, has really been about letting it burn, being able to identify the simultaneous experience of destruction and metamorphosis, or destruction and rebirth, that fire represents. And so we had an opportunity to set some intentions, to plant some spiritual seeds for growth within ourselves that have to do with revering, honoring, respecting the role of fire, and more than that, what it represents within each of us, which is the ability to let go of the material and to rise into the spirit, right? And so the fire is the representation of this enigma that all of the mystics, right? The ascetics, the mystics, anybody that's on this spiritual path, regardless of your religion or your spiritual context, there has always been this journey towards the death of the body and the resurrection of the soul within the body. And so I just listened to a really, really nice channeling this morning about 5D mentality that I'm going to post on Telegram, that I really think summed up a lot of the very essence of what it means to move into fifth density and what that actually means. It really does. And, I've had many conversations with people and clients and friends. And so how you identify this is really up to you. But from my perspective and the way that I facilitate this work with people is that it is a mindset. It's a mindset of non-judgment. It's a mindset of being able to simultaneously live in that dual nature of cause and effect, or black and white, water, fire, whatever the opposing elements of Gemini that we have been moving towards in the last 18 months with the North Node in Gemini. The fifth density or fifth dimension, however whatever makes sense to you. I think those are two different things. Personally, and there's other teachings that also focus on that. Specifically, the law of one material makes that distinction, and I really do resonate with that personally. But the fifth density is the idea that you are living in non-judgment in every situation, because every situation is dialectic, right? It presents its antithesis in every situation, either a choice or a feeling or a thought or an action, right? Any of those things have their antithesis, and living in fifth density is the consistent experience of creating something out of that dual nature in every given moment. And when we realize that, then there is no judgment of anything, because we realize that every situation provides its antithesis that and then allows us to create and then create and then create. So you're consistently living in a place of non-judgment of what has been maybe presented to you as an opposition, because that is the place from which we create and we come into unity consciousness, right? And part of that process for the last 1.5 to 2 years, especially with the North Node in Gemini in particular, is the experience of living in the dialectic without the emotional attachment to it, because without that, we don't have the opportunity to span the dialectic, whatever that is for us, right? Ideas, concepts, literal behaviors and choices, right? Actions that we take, feelings that we have. There's always an antithesis to that as well. So we've gone on quite a journey in the last 2 years, and now that we are entering this Pleiadian revival period, that the moon's nodes are now shifting into Taurus and Scorpio. There's a whole new experiential, feeling-based, karmic journey that we're all about to go on, and it's really starting with this new moon. So there's a lot of newness. There's a lot of And it's not necessarily positive for everybody either. So when we get to February, we're going to talk more about the Chinese New Year, because we're now coming into the year of the water tiger, which has a lot of implications for this year. And if that's something that you're interested in, of course, there are, just like Western astrology, just like Vedic astrology, there is no shortage of information that you can sift through about Chinese astrology. But we'll talk more about that as it gets closer to the Chinese New Year, which is the first new moon in February. That's the beginning of the Chinese New Year, because they actually are on a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar. So at the 13th month, right? The 13th lunar month is when the year starts back over. So it's going to be an incredible year, right? And it's still challenging right now until about February, mid-February into the spring. It's going to start breaking loose. And for those who have the temperament, I would say, and able to embrace the temperament of what the tiger represents, it's going to be an incredible year. But there's a caveat to that, right? I mean, there is a need to be kind of ruthless. There's a need to be in our power, in our sovereignty. In Chinese astrology, there is no lion in the zodiac like there is in the Western astrology pantheon, basically. So think of the tiger as the lion, which is what rules, it's associated with Leo. So there's sovereignty, there's power, there's regalness, there is a sense of authenticity and a very strong Lyran component as well, especially with all this Capricorn energy right now. That's very powerful. So there's a lot that we have to talk about over the next couple of months, especially. And just now it feels, especially with Mercury coming into Aquarius, the moon's going to come into Aquarius today, really and that means the moon's going to meet Mercury. It's going to be a very seamless experience, I'd say, in the next day or so, of allowing our emotions and our internal landscape and our intuitive notions to really find a voice and mental conceptualization and expression when it comes to the nature of the collective itself, because that's what Aquarius represents. So if you're feeling, it's going both ways. It's been very, there's been some very drastic and very painful things that have happened with people in the last couple of days. And then also people just kind of like ready to go, right? Waking up today and being like, whoa, this is a totally different place. And it's time now to step into my power. And I think as we get closer into February, that's going to build and build. But that doesn't mean there won't be plenty of challenges along the way. And this is part of living in fifth density, and part of the Starseed Lightworker mission is to literally straddle that gap, and to not only straddle that gap, but be a lighthouse for other people, and to be an example of what that actually looks like. And so there will be plenty of opportunities that are going to come up in the next couple of weeks during this new period of time that are going to challenge maybe a newfound perspective. Of course, people always are setting, new intentions and resolutions and things for the new year. And with the new moon so close to the calendar shift into 2022, you can feel that people have really come to a resolution moment within themselves. And when we see the reading today, you will see that there will be some challenge that comes along with it, but it's going to be very powerful. The inventory doesn't stop, right? It just gets much more focused and powerful. So we'll have so much to go over with that. So I'm gonna, let's see here, move over into get out of the studio mode here. I'm going to check in with the stream and see what's going on. Facebook free since 2015. Alex K, you're my hero. I keep doing that, right? I keep like, fuck Facebook. And then I go back, and then it's like, oh, wait, maybe I should go back. But here's the reality. I get no traction on Facebook for my business. And that's all I care about at this point. Not even my business. It's more like a ministry at this point. I just get no traction, right? I get no love, no traction on Facebook, except for a very small amount of people. people. So why keep feeding the beast, to be perfectly honest? Like, we all know what Facebook is, and I personally, I'm just like, ugh, I'm done. Barbara says, yeah, I'm Year of the Tiger. Lyran component, interesting. Can you suggest any fixed star galactic astrology? No, I can't. I really can't. So much of what I've done is my own, like, my own intuition, right? Most of the books that I've read are astrologers who are dead, right? Like Dane Rudger and Jeffrey Wolf Green are my primary, they're my primary focuses. If you want to read about astrology and starseed stuff, I would recommend Barbara Marciniak and Bringers of the Dawn. That was really just blew my mind right open. But I don't have any suggestions of those types of books because of this. I think the best resource I can offer in terms of galactic astrology is the Starseed Hotline, because that's where I learned the protocol for this particular type of reading. But everything else that in terms of these specific the way that I read, the protocol that I use, and what has guided me the most has been my own intuition. And I'm telling you what, I think that's going to be a really big theme moving forward too, is like the tiger is such a singular, leadership-oriented type of experience. And so I think that it's going to be much more of a direct connection to source more than anything else that is going to guide people. And maybe that requires taking some time away, which doesn't really help what I'm doing necessarily either, because the one hand I'm recommending and suggesting people to get much more deeply into themselves, and that is going to come up in the reading, right? But on the other hand, offering content, offering guidance, offering a ministry of sorts is also, doing the thing that I'm like, you don't really need this. But I believe that you don't really need it. So I'm ready to go. Fantastic workshop yesterday that totally reset me across the divide. Great. I'm glad that people are finding what they need, and that seems to be the case, that people are finding what they need. They're finding their inspiration. They're finding what it is that speaks to them, and they are making concerted connections to that. So we'll see how it all goes, right? So we'll get into the reading. We'll get into the reading now, and we'll take a minute to kind of ground ourselves. So I'll bring up the reading for everyone, and I hope everyone had a really great New Year. It was safe and fun and nourishing and all the things that you wanted it to be. For me, it went really fast. Angus was sneezing blood out of his nose, and so New Year's Day, it wouldn't be New Year's in my family if somebody didn't go to the hospital. That seems to be a standard practice in the last couple of years, that New Year's Day is usually like, oops, somebody got hurt. But Angus he needed to go in and see the on-call vet, which I'm really grateful for. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for my vet that they have that option, and went in to see, and it was the owner of the clinic who was on call, and he probably lives right next to it, and was just really good with everything. And so, it's hard with an animal with a compromised immune system. It's really difficult to figure out exactly what's triggering these types of experiences. But he's good now, and he's definitely not himself, but he is now recovering from the intervention that we were able to receive from the doctor. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. So where's the reading? I'm like trying to find, there we go. Ta-da. There we go. And Barb, if something comes up in terms of a specific book about things, I will let you know, but I'm just being perfectly honest. I can't even point to a single book on my shelf right now that has guided me in terms of these particular the fixed star. Okay, I lied. There's one book that I've used that is about fixed stars, and it's Vivian Robson. It's a very old book about fixed star astrology, and it's mostly just a reference to the fixed stars, to the constellations. Astrology King has a great website that not only has all of the fixed stars available that you can click on and get all of this information. I use that a lot. Astrology King also does blog posts that detail the transits themselves and then the natal aspect. So for instance, we have the moon meeting Venus today in a conjunction in Capricorn. So that you could type in moon conjunct Venus transit and you'll find the Astrology King website, and he'll have a page that will be, this is what a moon conjunct Venus in the natal chart may be, or this is what a moon conjunct Venus in a transit would be. And it's not sign specific, so that's important to understand, or in your houses. It's very generalized, but I do use Astrology King in terms of a reference. But anything, and the Starseed Hotline is where for me, is the root of the Starseed protocol and the readings in the astrology. So that's always the reference that I direct to people. But in terms of books, like I said, Jeff Green, Dane Rudger, those are both astrologers that are long gone, and they're my primary reference. And then Barbara Marciniak. I mean, Bringers of the Dawn was changed me, and I always recommend that. And of course, all of these channelings you should definitely take with some couple grains of salt. But Barbara Marciniak has always been consistent, and I've always managed to, it's always resonated no matter what. And she's also, when she channels the Ps or the Pleiadians, it's also very focused, just like the Starseed Hotline. Astrology is essential to understanding your starseed nature. It's essential. You have to learn it if you want to understand the language of the universe, because it's mathematically based and geometrically based. And without that context, the rest of it is just, that's just my opinion though. But she really does express that. So let's take a moment here before we get into the reading to kind of ground ourselves. Not even kind of. Let's actually ground ourselves and see if we can resonate here with this here Tibetan singing bowl at C major here and get our root chakra. So take a moment here to get yourself, feel the contact between your sits bones or your feet or both with the ground, and then below into the surface of the earth, going down the layers like layers of skin. Finding your Earth Star chakra. Take a deep breath in. And release. Okay. Excellent. Whew. I mean, for me, I'll tell you what, Mercury came in my first house. I mean, I am buzzing this morning. So I've had to do a lot of work to get myself grounded, because I am like flying out of my own head right now, and in a good way. But it's important to stay grounded because it will keep us focused on where we're going and where we want to be going, and the unearthing of what is important by staying in that grounded position and having an anchor while we are opening up into these much higher vibrational realms, right? We want to make sure that we are still here. This is something that is really important in terms of what I facilitate with people, is that we are here on this planet for a reason, and to stay grounded and to stay stabilized in the fact that we are here. That doesn't mean we worship materialism, that we worship or put all of our focus on the material or the flesh, so to speak, but that we are here to bring the spiritual experience into the physical experience, and we have to stay in the physical experience of what is in order to do that. And it's very easy to kind of want to check out in a spiritual way, and because that's not doing this process any good. And being a starseed has a lot of responsibility, and that's another thing that I really try to communicate is that there's a reason, and it's not just to leave your body and go back into these higher dimensions. You came here as a starseed because you're made a commitment to this mission of bringing, not so much bringing, I mean, it's not meant to save anybody. It is here to be a guide for those who are going through their own process. So anyway, let's get into this reading. Here's our princess again. Man, she just is always around. So the Princess of Wands, right? The Venus in the fire signs as our causal factor. Dancing in the flames. Oh, look at the tiger. Isn't that interesting? The year of the tiger. Vesta is in Sagittarius, right? Vesta, the hearth flame, crossing the galactic center today as well. So there is so much flaming energy, especially with the new moon's context coming into this new year right now. There is a really strong need to letting it burn, right? The power and the necessity of fire and tiger, you know, in Chinese, I'm not a certified Chinese astrologer, right? I do have a background in Chinese medicine, vaguely, right? I've been trained in shiatsu. I've been trained in the basics of Chinese medicine. I have my own self-study around that, so I can speak very generally to these things. And of course, I know how to research, right? You just have to get on the internet, and everything that you'd ever want is at your fingertips. So one thing I know about the year of the tiger, and the tiger itself, it's all yang energy, all of it. It's all yang. So it's related to different elements, but it's all yang energy. So just keep that in mind too. We are entering a phase now that has a lot of yang or yang energy, active, outwardly expressive, right? Fire, transformation, creativity, growth, and just moving outwards and expand. Is a lot of this energy just has been swirling around and is very much part of what's going on right now, even with Venus, Pluto in Capricorn, even with Neptune in Pisces, right? Even with the nodes moving into very feminine signs very soon. Jupiter's in Pisces. So, but this is the causal factor. This is us dancing in the flames. We got the tiger wrapped around us, right? That is actually, in some ways, it looks like the tail of the tiger has turned into some sort of antennae on the princess, and she's got her wand and the flame of the hearth. This is Vesta all day long, as far as I can tell, right? Burning it all away. So we are really embodying and collectively, I think, have decided to embody this energy, to dance in the flames, and to have a lot of courage and enthusiasm and joy for life. I do feel like that there is a very large cross-section of people that are like, you know what, let's do it. Let's do it. So now this is where it gets interesting. So be mindful. Now I've heard, and I don't know how true this is because I haven't confirmed it for myself, and it's important that I say that because a lot of people will say things that they're our opinion without any actual backing, or they make really large assumptions based on information that they would like to fit in there. But I've heard, although I would have to find out for myself, that in the original Crowley deck, right, the Book of Thoth, is that he never read for reversals. That was never really part of what he did. So that's something to keep in mind when you see reversals in general, but certainly in the Thoth deck, that he never accounted for that when he was writing it, the Book of Thoth, and he was putting words and language to these archetypal symbols. So that's something to consider, that it doesn't have a very it doesn't have to always have a very distinct and precise meaning when it's reversed. So there's a little bit of leeway here in terms of what's surrounding the rest of the reading. Just know that in a reversal, there's something that is either internalized or it is not fully expressed. And in this case, when you look at the entire reading, I do see that it's much more internalized. It might be a difficult internalization, right? So you have the Ace of Swords as our or as our heart of the moment, right? As the axis point between our outside horizontal like consciousness and our vertical axis of power. And this is the cross point, which is the Ace of Swords, but it's reversed. So if you just take a moment here to look at this particular card, you see that this is the beginning of something, right? The beginning of an original thought, the beginning of thinking in general, right? This is a new thought. This is the first thought or impulse from the mind, the Ace of Swords, right? It's the seed point of this particular element. So a new view of things. I think that this is very relevant to right now, is a new view of things, an undifferentiated unity of thought, right? The first thought, first impulse from the mind, the beginning of some mental trajectory or mental pathway. Now, when it's reversed, it can mean that this energy is dissipated, or there can be a really cold logic to it, right? That has all these negative connotations. But with all these other cards in mind, what really stands out to me and what I saw when I looked at it in reversed is that it's kind of like you're putting your sword in the ground. In this upright version, you have the point of the sword, right? The tip of the spear, so to speak, is facing up, and it's surrounded by a crown or a corona, for instance, right? And it's up in the sky. You can see that, right? And there is a sense of sunlight, right? You get this idea that there's a light shining, and this is where the mind is really penetrating into, and it's kind of above everything. You're in the ether, you're in the mental realm. And it's very singular focus. When it's reversed like this, the first thing I thought was this is planting it right in the ground, right? This is where that original thought is either being internalized, right? And an internalization of this beginning or impulse of the mind into ourselves, or that we are at a point where we are just going to stabilize this new thought. It's not necessarily like an aha moment up. It's an aha moment down into where we're grounding ourselves, right? That feels the most relevant to me considering everything else. Now, some people may have a very hard time with this new impulsive thought, or this brand new thinking pattern, right? This might be something that is, and when you see you have the Two of Cups reversed too as the outcome, it's not going to be easy for everybody. And there might be some serious broken hearts as a result of this work, right? Because I do feel like that this is what we are going to likely experience over the next 6 weeks, roughly. Is we have to feel this, we will feel it, right? Whatever this is. And it may be, again, an internalized experience where we have to find that self-love within us and not really looking towards it, looking for it outside of us. And I would say with the Princess of Wands here, right, she's just going to burn it all down. She's not even thinking about what she's doing. She just is. She's just acting. She's just in the moment. And that's not that this is necessarily a negative thing. It's going to come with this inevitable consequences when we plant our mind into some sort of grounded purpose. And it will be more stinging for others, right? I found that to be the case just in general with a lot of these transits. So the Ace of Swords reversed. Now here is the One of Scrolls, the Ace of Swords. It's kind of the same thing. There's a lot of newness in this reading. We have the Court card of the Princess, but then we have the Ace of Swords. We have the One of Scrolls. At the top, we have the number 2, the Akashic Library. And then our outcome is the Two of Cups. And as we expand on this a little bit more, we'll see that there is some endings as well, and there are some aspects that really need to be finally just pushed out the door, as we'll see. So, and it might be our own egos being like, okay, it's time now to get on the train, which is what the One of Scrolls really represents. This is on track. Again, it's the same kind of feeling as the Ace. And so you can also see that, the point of the sword that is pointed down, that is in some ways finding itself penetrating the ground and being stabilized in that position is towards this One of Scrolls, a decision, right? We have to make a choice. And I think that we've already made our choice. We've already looked at the map. We've made a decision. Many of ours made this decision a long time ago. Many, I would say too that the holiday season has been a time to this inventory, right? Especially with Venus in retrograde still. This is a big part of the inventory process. I don't feel like it's going to be when Venus comes into well, first, she's going to meet the sun this week. And that's going to be like, okay, it's time to grow up now. And I'll explain more of that when we get closer in terms of the Sabian symbol, right? It's going to be a moment of accelerated growth when we step into a role of more responsibility that we may not be ready for. But this is about where we are drawing our power, right, energetically, where we are rooted, what's going on in our subconscious, right? What is under the surface that is really stabilizing us or rooting us or allowing us to feel personal power, where we can draw it from. Choices and direction, right? And it's time to decide on that track if you've been ambivalent. So whatever it is that you've been ambivalent about, maybe there's been a lot of doubt in your mind, which is a normal part of any process and with Venus, the goddess of love and the goddess of value and worth and inherent value and worth, being in this retrograde in Capricorn, I think we are taking a very strong internalized inventory. But this is suggesting now that even as that process is continuing to unfold, especially when Venus meets the sun this week in her retrograde, it's important that in a mental, from a mental perspective, from our own thoughts, that we have made a decision. And maybe we've already made the decision, and if we haven't, it's time to. And so it can be something just as simple as that, like, whatever you maybe have been ambivalent about or unsure about or really struggling with, maybe in the mind, it's time to just make the decision and get on the train and stop worrying so much about what could be because it hasn't happened yet. Right. And it's not to say that you shouldn't be prepared. I'm not suggesting that at all. Like, don't throw caution to the wind entirely. There'll be plenty of opportunities for all of us to reinforce to ourselves or to ask, right? This is where prayer is so important, right? If you're really confused, you open yourself up to receive the guidance by opening yourself up and receiving the guidance, right? By humbling yourself, by surrendering to the flow of the Great Spirit or Source or God or the universe, right? But you have to actually be genuinely open to receive and then have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. This is much more, though, about, decision of getting on the train. We already know, we've already made the decision. And if you've seen the Matrix movie, I'm not going to get to any about that right now. That I might save for its own thing, right? Because I'm very curious how people were thinking about it and and what we can get at a meta level, of course. But one of the things that they brought up really strongly in that movie is that, is there actually ever a choice, or is the choice already been made? Which is fate, right? And fate is a function of cause and effect, right? Is that there is no real choice. You've already made the choice as a result of being in alignment with who you are. And the choice, the dialectic, is that opportunity to come into awareness of it, right? Ooh, that is interesting. I'm really getting all kinds of feels on that one. So on track, right? We've made the decision, and we can really ground ourselves and stabilize and grab and funnel our power from this place. Get on the train. You got the ticket, right? And this is the waiting room over here. So if you look at the whole spread, you see that the waiting area has to do with our ability to align with and to be in congruence with rhythm, planetary rhythm, the heartbeat of the earth, the Schumann resonance. And we'll get to that in a second as we go through this. So there's the One of Scrolls. And of course, we have the Akashic Library in terms of where we can put our attention, which is a very interesting place to have it, because this is about, again, going down, right? Going down into the library of your own soul. And what it references is a new initiation, right? You've made the journey to go down and to learn about who you are, to better understand your old motives, your new purposes, right? And this allows for an ability to manifest a new life, because when you have awareness in real time or in your conscious mind of your own akash, basically, your own history, your own old motives, right? Your past lives, your multidimensional experiences. When you come to a much stronger awareness of these things as a result of your own study, right? You've gone into your own akash and you really have taken the initiative to actually learn something here about yourself. You can actually manifest, the new life, where we're going, right? It's time to take the leap. And part of that is our conscious awareness of the fact that we can do this and go and initiate this new purpose. And so something very simple that people often do with the new moon is writing a declaration, writing a resolution of the future you want to create. Maybe burning away that which you are ready to release, writing it down on a piece of paper and throwing it in a fire, right? These are really quite simple, but very profoundly powerful practices that can be part of this Akashic Library focus here, which is going into who you are and manifesting something out of that, a new initiation. But it has to do with going within, right? Or going down into the library. So again, this Ace of Swords that is reversed is really just planting your mind on the track that you're going and to commit to it. And this focus up here, and when we look at the guidance points, wow, it really is about having the courage and the foresight to take the path less traveled, because it may have, how are you ever going to know what's on the other side if you don't take the initiative to travel or to take the road less traveled, right? Or the road that's unknown. And this is very scary for everybody, right? Whatever you're doing, right? It's a lot easier to revert back to your old patterns because you're afraid. And I can definitely attest to this in my own way right now, in terms of like where I'm going, my resources, what I'm doing. So everybody's feeling it in their own way, okay? And so the thing that is going to be very challenging about this is when we have the Two of Cups. This is Venus in Cancer. This is the Two of Cups is love. It's love based on differentiation, love that needs separation in order to find its unification. Now remember, we just talked about this, that the fifth density perspective is about living in unity consciousness continually, because every time you have a thought, a feeling, you take an action or engage in a behavior or something, any experience that you have is going to have its antithesis. You immediately see it for what it is, that it's the antithesis, and not judge it, and then you alchemize it. You alchemize it, it creates something new, and you are in unity consciousness as a result of it in every single moment, right? This is very difficult to do because we've had the South Node in Sagittarius. And for those that have not been like actively moving in the direction of Rahu and hanging on for dear life of the South Node, the tail of the dragon, I mean, I talked about the dark side of Sagittarius. And I have, as far as I'm concerned, I have a lot of, education in this realm, being a very strong Sag person, right? Very, very strong Sag person. My Jupiter ruled in trine to Antares. There is a distinctly judgmental dark side to Sagittarius. And if you do not allow for the acceptance of the duality as is without any attachment to what it means, because that's what Sagittarius is. It's about the meaning of our relationships, and the meaning of them is what allows us to create. But the thing is that we are going away from what things used to mean, right? And moving towards new ideas, or we have been, right? We're about to go into a whole new place when it comes to our karmic soul's journey. But this requires that there's differentiation in order to experience the unification of love. And it needs its counterpart or a goal outside of itself when it's just in general. So in its reversal, there's a couple ways we can look at it. Maybe there's wasting our energy, right? Maybe our energy is being dissipated, right? Maybe there's a certain amount of silliness and it's not like very real. Not to say that silly is a bad thing, but in this situation, it may just be kind of immature. Maybe it's just really subtle. But considering everything else in this reading right now, there is a need to initiate this counterpart or goal outside of itself, really within, right? That we have to find a way to love ourselves with the Two of Cups. Now, this also does bring up the potential for some serious brokenheartedness, right? That we have to split apart in some ways emotionally to realize that there was even anything that was a counterpart to begin with. And there may be this separation at an emotional and feeling and even spiritual level in order to even see that there are two different aspects to what may have come together into seemingly one type of experience or relationship. So there could be, and it may just be brokenheartedness of leaving something within yourself behind. And that seems pretty likely. Now, it also seems likely that this is going to express itself in very real relationships in all kinds of ways as well. Because when you put your mind to something and decide to have it grounded into a specific trajectory, you're on track, right? You're going where you know you need to go. There is likely going to be splitting apart in some way, right? And it's brokenheartedness in some way or dissipating our energy. But I also get a strong sense that this is this reversal is more about what we are experiencing internally as a result. But it can go a number of different ways. And that's the beauty of all of this, right? Is that these patterns unfold for everybody on this planet, and then everybody's personal experience is their own. So, and it allows us to all understand each other more. That's our Two of Cups reversed. So when it comes to the guidance, the Four of Roses, right? So roses and water, they're kind of the same thing in terms of an element. It represents the love. It represents the flow of the spirit, something that is beautiful but also delicate, right? And water is not delicate at all. It's definitely beautiful, but water can flow, water can crash, right? That's that famous line from Bruce Lee and talking about being like water. So it has all these properties. But in this case, the views of the ego, it's pretty obvious what this card represents. And we've talked about this many times. This is nothing new. In the last 2 years that I've been doing this, I mean, this is a dynamic that is pretty familiar to all of us. And so in its reversal, what we can expect here is that we are done. Right? And so when you're talking about the One of Scrolls and getting on track, there is a certain amount of tolerance of self-serving behavior that we are just done with, whatever it is. And we become way more aware of our priorities. Again, getting on track in our mind, right? There are aspects either of our own ego, right? Here we're talking about Chiron. You know, Chiron had an incredible amount of activity last week. And certainly there will be more, but there was significant connections from Mars at Antares, with the sun making that square to Chiron. There was a lot of these issues brought up to the surface over the weekend and certainly through the holiday season that I think is bringing this to a head, and we become aware of our priorities, and we're no longer willing to be neglected or minimized. Like, we're done. And so whenever the ego causes you to feel a lack in your life, because that's just the function of the ego, right? That the ego consciousness that develops in who we are, that is our survival mechanism of our psyche, right? If there's something off about it and there's just no getting around it because Chiron is in Aries. So we're all going through this. So whenever the ego causes you to feel lack, say thank you for the reminder that it's not based on exclusively your ego, right? It's so much more than that. And only when you treat yourself better do you find that love is inexhaustible. So if you are treating yourself, for instance, as if love is not inexhaustible, right? If you treat yourself like love is a commodity that has an end into it, then you can't really expect to necessarily experience that outside of yourself either. And again, this is part of the Two of Cups being reversed, is that something may be going away. There may be some brokenheartedness. There may be dissipation, but it's coming from a place that feels like that we're just done, right? And we're aware of our priorities, and we're no longer willing to be neglected or minimized, regardless of how if this is your own internalized experience, you're having this experience in your relationships, your family, the larger social environment. Again, this is all depends a lot on where you find things in your chart. And then as a global society, I think that this is becoming way more relevant as well. So, and if you are waiting to get on track, maybe you know that the train isn't quite here yet. You know at the heart of things that it's time to really settle on an idea and stick with it, and know that this is the beginning of something new in terms of your mental journey or your ideas and conceptualizations, right? Even if you're not quite ready to get on the train, it hasn't arrived yet, that's very possible. The grouse, express yourself through rhythm and movement. But this is really about getting in alignment with the natural rhythm, right? Through these practices. Dancing is great, drumming is great, chanting is great. Whatever practice allows you to connect back into the grid of the planet and the vibration and the heartbeat of the planet, which is really the most expressed through the Schumann resonance, I would say, right? Just like our heartbeat is an electrical pump that puts out an electromagnetic field around every being that has a heartbeat, an electrical pump, is the same with the planet. So getting in touch with that, I think, is really going to help with the anxiety, perhaps, of, I'm waiting for the train and your leg is bouncing. When's it going to get here? You keep checking your phone. You check your ticket. Am I at the right gate? Right? You might have some anxiety about it. So get in alignment with the heartbeat, because that's, again, it's our best bet. And it's not that we are exclusively giving ourselves over to the material. It is the fact that the planet is a living organism, and she has already made this transition. And she, as a mother and as a, seriously, as a mother, is guiding us through this process, but we have to actually be connected to her energetically. So this is a really good way to do it. And even realizing that we're done, right? That could be enough of the idea right there. We're done. I'm done. I'm done being minimized. I'm done being neglected. I'm done neglecting my higher self. And part of that, I think, is to take the guidance and the message of the grouse and get low to the ground, right? The grouse is a bird, but it doesn't really fly. I mean, it kind of does. They're like turkeys, right? That they fly, but most of their life is right on the ground. That's really important. And there's two birds in this reading, and one sails very high, the falcon, and the other, it lives most of its life on the ground. So we see the areas that will allow us to stay grounded. We see the areas that allow us to gather our personal power, and it's very much, all of these elements here. So when we move up to where our conscious awareness is and what's going on in these upper chakras, for instance, right? Act on the opportunity that's before you and commit to it without equivocation. Doesn't that sound like get on the train? And it really has a lot to do with walking down the unknown path, right? Don't let the opportunity slip by because you're afraid of something, right? You're afraid because you've never been down there before, and you're like, what is this? The Eight of Scrolls is definitely the end of the scrolls in the Akashic Tarot. There's three pathways. One is in the middle, that this person has gone down presumably many times. One is behind her that she doesn't even see. She's got a little fox right there. And then one is the raccoon that is, she sees it, but she's never been on it before. And that's the one she's really looking at, is the one that she's like, I haven't done that one before. I see it. I see that the raccoon is here as the guidance animal, but I'm not sure yet. And she's got all of her scrolls rolled up in her bag, and there is a pathway back here that she's not seeing as well. But this is about being willing to take the unknown path. And, other paths aren't clear, and we have to make a decision to take the unknown path with confidence, right? There's that falcon again. The falcon isn't thinking. The Falcon is using its incredible sight to commit to its prey and will go after it and will get what it needs, right? There's no thinking, there's no doubting. Oh, can I do it? I don't know if I have enough. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. Maybe I should go back to the nest and wring my hands about it a little bit more. Whatever. You know what I mean? That's not what the Falcon represents. The Falcon is act on the opportunity. So what are we doing? We're going into unknown territory. We're having the confidence and the courage and the ability to go into new places. And this is all part of the Akashic Library. Maybe we're going into a completely new state of our Akash and manifesting a new reality. Because I feel like a lot of cycles and karmic contracts have gotten wrapped up very recently. I'd say in the last couple of weeks, you can really feel that coming full circle. Again, though, I do see on the outside of things, unfortunately, whatever, even, everything is here to help you, right? That's the Matt Kahn title of a book, right? Everything is here to help you. Even in this reversal of the Two of Cups, it's still pretty new. The Two is still pretty new. And here's the Akashic Library. There just may be an experience that's emotionally uncomfortable or something that we're not familiar with. That could also be it too. Maybe it's just not quite, it hasn't quite manifested itself fully yet while it's in its reversal, right? It's still in the beginning stages. Maybe it hasn't quite come into alignment yet. Or for other people, it's just going to be a significant heartbreak in a lot of ways. So, but it's all still part of this process of making a commitment and getting on track and actually taking some unknown pathways into, how can we possibly know what to expect as we are embarking on a stage of humanity that nobody's ever been in, right? And we don't have any real historical perspective that we've been offered for this process. So we have to kind of do it on our own. And that's the role of the starseed and the light worker, right? Is to we volunteered for this mission, and I know that that's really hard for people to hear because a lot of us has experienced so much differing traumas in our lives, and there will be more for other people, but this is not to say that we won't suffer more. That's not fair and that's not realistic, but we also have been through so much already that it has primed us for our mission right now. So it's, I'm curious to see. And my heart goes out truly to people who are having kind of the worst experience of this. And I know some people are for a fact. So there's a lot of different ways it could make itself known. So we're going to move on to the astrology today to kind of get this grounded into the cycles, right? The cycles that represent all of us. So let's check in with the chat here real quick. Yes, it is all bots. So let me just clear this out and see what's going on. It looks like the stream kind of dropped off. It looks like the amount of people dropped off, and I don't know if it's because something happened with the stream or because people are just moving on for the day, which makes total sense. But if there's something that is not working with the stream, please let me know so that I can, oh yeah, Starseed Hotline. Yes, they're, like I said, they're the ones that developed the protocol for how I do the readings. And they are still, and the reading that I got from my Starseed reading that I got from them was so on point. It reinforced everything that I had come to for the most part on my own. And it was really powerful. And I really trusted, I've trusted their perspective for a long time anyway, but to finally get they're backed up for months and months and months. It took 5-6 months to get, the first stage of a starseed reading. So it was really cool to get that last piece of Yeah, I know. See, this is why I'm moving off of YouTube. Sorry, I didn't mean to like just cut myself off, but I saw a comment that said, I'm still here, but it says nobody's here. This is why I'm going to move off YouTube. They have this like, their algorithm is just so full of that I have no interest in giving my energy to them anymore. Anyway, thanks for letting me know, Alex. So let's look at this, shall we, for today and see what the cosmos has in store for us. So like I said, the sun is at 13 to 14 degrees Capricorn. This Sabian symbol is about unearthing what is permanent and has value to us, right? And then also to what can be flushed away, right? That we don't need. And what I thought is interesting about the image that I picked for the thumbnail is it's certainly an archaeological dig, and you can see that they're brushing away the debris that's hiding it. But doesn't it kind of look like a heart? You have to go back and look at it and see, but it does. It kind of looks like a heart, and I really liked that because I think that's really what we're going for here. Is that it's our heart, it's our heart center. This is where it all stems from, right? The upper chakras being open, very important. The lower chakras being secure and open to the earth, very important. They meet at the heart. The heart is what creates the field around us that allows for us to be strong and to emit an incredible amount of light and energy, and also to keep ourselves from, it's like a semi-permeable membrane, right? And we want to be able to have a large field that is able to interact with other people's fields, but also is able to keep out what we don't want. But it comes from the heart. It doesn't come from anywhere else. This is the meeting point. So I really liked that image because there's a lot that can go. There really is. There's a lot that we can just flush away that we've been holding on to for so long that it's like, just let it go. And, the eclipse season is a big part of that. That's something that is going to still be unfolding over the next couple of months into April and May. So there's still going to be experiences of those reverberations coming back around. And there was a big one when the moon met Mars in Sagittarius. Wow, at that degree. And it was really powerful. I do want to actually go into that because I had my own experience that really brought some stuff. And I just, like I said, I have Jupiter, my ruling planet is Jupiter, and it's in the 7th house, and it's in a trine, an exact trine to Antares. And so my Jupiter with all the Sag energy, with Chiron as well, certainly, but then also when the moon met Sagittarius at that degree, that 12 to 13 degrees, it was, I had some interesting feedback that I got from someone that I was just like, man, I really got to check myself right now and see how I feel about this, and really see the, pull back the layers of my own ego for just a moment, just to see, so that I can really get what this message really is. So I do want to go into that, but let's talk about today's astrology first. And get into the moon in particular. So like I also said, Mercury has moved into Aquarius. So the mental energy, remember we talked about this. This happened in the reading either sometime last week or the week prior, that we got that 6 of Swords as our future or effect of our cause and effect, right? The 6 of Swords is Mercury in Aquarius, right? Science, right? It's a very sharp, it's a very precise, it's very balanced, and it's like the perfect place for the mind because it is able to fully engage itself in the realm of ideas that have a purpose, that have a convergence. That's really important. So Mercury's here, so you may find that your mind is really active now, especially depending on where Aquarius is in your chart. And we have Saturn that's in Aquarius still, that's important, and the moon's going to come into Aquarius today. So there's going to be a lot of this Aquarian energy that we're all going to be personally connecting to. So, but before that happens, there's a couple other things that need to be brought to our awareness first. So let's go over the moon transits, and then I'm going to bring up as we go through them, the things that have shifted today, because there's been some significant shifts, not the least of which is Pluto has now moved into the 26 to 27 degrees area of Capricorn, getting so close now to the exact Pluto return of the United States. So we're within a degree of that, roughly. Less than 2 degrees. So it's getting more strong every day. And you can feel that building. And the degree of this position of Pluto is very important. So when the moon comes into this connection, we'll be able to expand on it a little bit more. So let's go back, because the first thing that really happened early this morning is that the moon in Capricorn had its sextile with Neptune in Pisces. Okay. So 21 degrees of Capricorn is an interesting, it's an interesting Sabian symbol. It's a relay race. So if you've ever done any kind of relay race, you know what it is, right? You have a group of people or a team that are working towards a common goal, and they each are meant to participate in their own, if you did like a 400-meter relay in track and field, for instance, right? Everybody does one lap around the track, and then you pass off the baton, and then you have a team of 4 people. And you are going against other teams of people who are doing the same thing. And it's about the dynamic interchange, right? You're literally running your lap and passing off the baton, and then the next person is running the lap. It's dynamic. It's a group-oriented exercise. It is meant to, the competition with others, just like kind of, if you want to think about, take this very loosely, because Capricorn is about capitalization. Think about it in terms of like a free market capitalism, if that doesn't exist. But right now it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it can never exist. It doesn't exist now. It's false. But in its most basic and its most pure form, the competition between these groups of people in their own dynamic interchange is what motivates the groups to reach their goal, because Capricorn is very goal-oriented. So the moon at this position of the relay race, like, we're all feeling our part within it, right? And we're motivated to run our best lap, right? For the sake of not just ourselves, but for the group. And we're all interacting with each other. The sextile to Neptune, in Pisces, which is a place that the moon normally would feel very comfortable in, which is in Pisces. The sextile is so much about trusting where we're all going. Like, we may, in our own personalized experience, be more focused in the moment at this sextile. This is overnight, right? Be more focused in the moment on the dynamic interchange, right? Our feelings towards our goals and our ambitions and how we work together to do them. The sextile, or the activation or the investment from Neptune in Pisces, is the much larger, connection to the Akash, to the quantum experience, right? To the multi-dimensional experience, and certainly to the morphogenic field, right? The woo, as Cliff High calls it. If you've been following his channel on BitChute, I really recommend it. Not everybody likes Cliff High and they think he's a curmudgeon, but I really enjoy his perspective on using predictive analytics and data analysis to track the same things that are happening here, which is just what astrology really is. It's just similar to binary code, for instance. So, but the woo, right? He's always talking about the woo, and I really feel like Pisces, that is the woo, right? It is the field. And so we each are having our own experience in this moment, and then the investment and the activation of this harmonious relationship comes from really doing this in the woo, right? In the conjunction of the field itself, or in relation not to our own needs or our own goals necessarily, but in the goals of the whole field, right? And Neptune in Pisces is like there is full experience and full immersion in the field, and depending on your personal ability to manage this space and how you are able to interface with this space is going to determine a lot what you get out of it. But with Neptune right here in Pisces, it's definitely a feeling of surrendering to the flow, surrendering to the field, and trusting, like truly very and I don't even want to say naive because it implies that there's no basis for it. It's really just very innocently trusting that we are going to somewhere new. And I would argue with Neptune coming into Aries in the next couple of years, it's a very spiritual revival, right? And other people have really predicted this as well from their own, through their own means. But what we're doing with each other is really so much more than just this little piece when we see ourselves within the full field of experience. And Neptune makes that very unavoidable, really. So that's something that may have come out in your dream state, depending on where you found yourself at this time frame. Of course, 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is definitely when I'm sleeping. So it may that just depending on if, what you're doing, meditation, if you're awake, prayer, whatever, this allowed for that dynamic interchange, feeling motivated by, to have a much vaster meaning to it. If we see it that way, if we engaged in this sextile, we have to actually activate it in some way. So he's using a cheat code. Tell me what his cheat code is. I want to know what his cheat code is. That's funny. So, because I think other people are using a cheat code. And I'm not going to say it out loud. I will not say it out loud here, but there are people that I feel like are doing similar types of analytics that are also using a cheat code. It's not coming from them. They're being fed information. So I'm curious what you have to say about that. But so as we go forward, right? So coming into this morning, here's the moon making a conjunction with Venus in Capricorn in her retrograde, right? And this is receiving those 2 awards for bravery in combat. So there's a recompense that the moon and Venus come into a conjunction with, where we feel, I think that this was a real, beautiful moment, honestly. Now, some people are feeling it very heavily, but even if there is heaviness, there's still some sort of balancing of accounts and like I said, a recompense and a realization of the individual's participation in the collective and being recognized for it. So I'm sure this kind of came about in a number of ways for people, especially Venus in her retrograde, because she's really representing this internal and deep inventory of value and inherent worth when it comes to what we're all working towards, right? And so this was another opportunity, I feel like, in this conjunction that allowed us to very, very feel. And so again, the 2 of Cups is Venus in Cancer. Venus is in its opposite sign, which is Capricorn. So the moon meeting this and the 2 awards for bravery, you can see how there may be a splitting apart or 2 sides that are recognizing the contribution that has been made in terms of the society and the value of it. And then we're each having our own internalized and emotional experience of that. So it may have been heavy because what the balancing of accounts really could stand for could be very devastating for people. Or it could be much more of, it really depends on the part of your chart that you're looking at it as well. After this happens watching his videos is like using a cheat code for life. You are so right. That's exactly how I feel about it. And it tracks with my own astrology read so much that I'm like, okay, Cliff High, I'll keep listening to you because you seem to have your finger on some pulse. And I think that there are a number of people that have their finger on the same pulse. And I really just find myself being more attracted to that lately. So Jupiter then comes into a square with, right at this time, right, comes into a square with the nodal axis of the moon. Now, we talked about this last week because I thought it was really important to bring up. And this is still something that already kind of transpired. But 2 degrees of Pisces is the squirrel hiding from the hunters, right? It's the necessity to exercise some caution and protection when you are fully immersed in the entire field of experience, because not everybody has our best intent. Not everybody has best intentions. Not everybody thinks that what they are trying to get is necessarily negative, right? If you're a hunter and you're hunting small game, for instance, you don't think about necessarily how that is impacting the small game that you're hunting. You're thinking about, oh, I'm going to hunt small game because it's going to give me something to put in my pot to make stew out of. So that's something to consider, that it's not necessarily a back and forth. It's just what is when you're fully engaged and immersed in the experience of being, right? The other thing is astral protection is a big part of this as well. And that you're still trying to put things away, right? You're still trying to accumulate and collect what you need, because Pisces is the very end of the astrological year, right? This is usually the hardest time of year for people because it's coming into February, at least in the northern hemisphere. It's a different experience in the southern hemisphere in terms of their seasons, but it's a difficult time of year because everything is like so dissipated. So Jupiter in this square, which is really a T-square, you don't see the opposition on this chart, but it is here at 1 to 2 degrees of Sagittarius still. This T-square is, we're still so close. We're very close to moving into conjunction with Alcyon. So right now we're still at the very last stages of being open to receive that which we have set out to receive, right? We are waiting for the blessings, the rewards, whatever, the information. We're waiting for we're waiting for Santa to fill the stocking, basically. I mean, I'm trying to use imagery that doesn't only go one way or the other, or is only focused on specific cultural aspects. But that's the Sabian symbol, right? Is Santa Claus filling the stockings. It's the idea that we have to leave out the stocking. We have to actually leave out the vessel, our own mind, in order to receive that which is going to be presented to us, as, because we put the stocking out. You know what I mean? So this T-square is ultimately Jupiter, whatever it is for us, is going to provide us some measure of protection, right? Just like in Clash of the Titans when Perseus gets the helmet or Harry Potter gets the invisibility cloak. Jupiter bestows and Jupiter expands, but it definitely bestows and advocates for those who are on Team Jupiter, whatever that means for you in whatever value system. Now, what's interesting is that Jupiter rules Sag, but it also rules Pisces. And so there is there's something to watch out for in that sense, because there is a stirring, right? There's a stirring of unconscious energies that is part of where K2 is. And I think that Jupiter is ruling Sag, of course, and then also ruling Pisces, very powerful in this particular T-square to K2, as opposed to Rahu is... We don't want to cut ourselves off totally, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case. But we want to maintain some measure of caution and protection as these unconscious energies are continuing to be stirred by the mind, for instance, which is what Gemini represents, is the actual function of the mind itself, and mutable air, right? And the ability to engage with these ideas. Protection, some level of protection and caution in the face of this very powerful soul direction, right? I mean, the dragon is something that will get to its treasure no matter what. So the North Node especially can feel very obsessive at times if you are not aware of the fact that your soul is like this dragon that is being driven to get somewhere. And Jupiter is like, just slow your roll here enough to put on this invisibility cloak so that you are not putting yourself out there to just be harvested or to be overwhelmed by the stirring of these unconscious energies that are going to come to the surface. Yes, we want to be open to receive, but at the same time, that if we are fully open, we may not be able to handle what exactly is stirring. And so Jupiter is like, here, let me give you some tools here. Let me give you some resources. Let me advocate on your behalf when it comes to true inner vision, because sometimes that can just, it can be too much. And so whatever this means to you, take it as a gift, that you're not trying to shut yourself off, but you also, it's important to realize that you don't want to necessarily leave yourself open to receiving something that's going to be destructive for you, or let your real intentions be known. Ooh, interesting. It goes both ways, right? Like that's part of being in fifth density consciousness. You recognize the both ways simultaneously and create from there. And you don't even allow yourself to get into judgment. That's Sagittarius. It's fully just a consistent process that allows you to come into knowingness of who you are and unity consciousness. But yeah, this is important. There's a protection here that is really necessary. And from there, we find that, the bots are just crazy. And it says that no one's watching. If anything, this has certainly reinforced my own perspective about what I'm going to do in terms of YouTube. So the moon then comes into a conjunction with Pluto, and this is getting more into where we are going to be. It's almost 11:30, so what we're looking at is this happening pretty much right now. So now that Pluto is in 26 to 27 degrees Capricorn, we are moving into a place where we're all going to start this upreaching, right? That we have been all kind of trotting up the mountain on these well-worn pilgrimage pathways to get to this place. And although it's a personalized individual experience for each person, the moon, right? This is our own individual personal experience making this trek. It is the connection to Pluto at the very same time that is really unearthing what ultimately is usually very repressed, very raw, and very powerful transformational energies that are going to come out right through our own emotional container, with being able to get to the top of this mountain. So there's perseverance that really needs to be brought forward, and it's going to come through it's like the pathway, because it's Pluto, right? Pluto's going to destroy. So the pathway is going to start being destroyed. And this has already come about once. Pluto was at this point before, so it's not completely new yet. But the ascent, right? The ascension of the individualized consciousness to the highest realizations that have been reached by other people, right? Leaders of our culture. Just so you know that those leaders, those spiritual leaders, if it's been a parade of false virtue, guaranteed that we're not only going to feel that sting and that pain and that heaviness, it's like a mudslide or a landslide is going to come, or an avalanche is going to come and just wipe away that pathway, so that we have to actually have a direct experience of our own. And the individual, which is us, right? The moon especially, is encouraged to hold unswervingly to the ultimate course, right? Even if that pathway is destroyed that we had been relying on, oh shit, that's gone now, right? We still have to persevere, and it's going to be such a visceral experience with the moon involved as well, that we'll have no choice but to persevere or to fall prey to this false virtue. And I think that this is going to be, the moon meeting this point is really kind of just, making it very palpable and visceral to each of us, what this time of Pluto in 26 to 27 degrees Capricorn is likely going to be. So we felt it already, and it's exact right now. So, even just talking about it is enough to kind of, trigger in some ways that feeling feeling of like, oh, damn, it's not what I can't get to this place in the same way that I used to, because I'm realizing that these are false prophets. This is false light. Or maybe it's just a parade of false virtue that at one point had some real validity to it, but then just got totally full of itself, which is really unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, and that's part of Pluto's role, right? Pluto has the final word because Pluto represents our metamorphosis. So if we're going to create new pathways up this mountain of our ascension, we have to be almost forced to do it as a result of destruction of the old ways, right? And this is a big part of the whole Pluto and Capricorn thing anyway. So then the moon moves into Aquarius right after this and meets, well, first what it does is come into a trine with Rahu, which is now in conjunction with Alcyon. This is really important. So this is by the end of today, right? 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the moon at the first degree of Aquarius is representing that, we all are feeling into a very spiritualized idealism of the human collective. Capricorn is about the unfolding of the material aspects, right? The things that give us security and the things that give us institutional provision, right? And the power that comes from the engine of nature unfolding, right? How powerful that really is. And our cooperation and contribution together makes these things. When it comes into Aquarius, you transcend it, right? This is why Uranus is the trickster, or Uranus representing Prometheus. Sometimes I feel like Venus also is Prometheus, right? I have that sense as well. I've never read anybody else that really has talked about that, but that's my own feeling about it, is that Venus also has her own dichotomy, and one of them is Prometheus, because in Greek mythology, Prometheus was said to have been from Venus, and also the morning star being related to Lucifer, being related to the light bringer, and Prometheus was the one punished by the gods, right, for bringing fire to humans, right? And strangely enough, it was Aquila the eagle, which is the constellation of Aquila, is in those first areas of the Aquarian part of the sky, actually. So this particular, it's more spiritualized, it's more idealistic. It's not based on the actual physical nature itself, but it's about the fact that it will last beyond just the people who built it, right? It'll be beyond them, whatever is being built, right? The spiritualized and idealized version of the human collective is something that is beyond just the individual people building it. So the moon comes into this particular degree and has a direct trine, an air trine with Rahu that's now in conjunction with Alcyon, right? The glass-bottomed boat, right? That we see the full range of the collective unconscious through some sort of translucent but very distinct barrier of our own psyche. Right? So they're not, we're not falling into the ocean, but we get to see the full experience of it. And this is a new dimension of reality that we are heading towards right now. So beautifully exemplified by this first degree of Gemini with Rahu. And we're going to feel this new place, this new dimension of reality has the capacity to be the idealistic, but yet concretized, it comes into concrete form, this ideal of the human collective. This is a really important moment of what we see and what we experience mentally in terms of a soul level and being pulled in that direction. Really having a very foundational connection to a place within us that is connected to what it means to reach an ideal state of collectivism or collectivity, right? Which ultimately goes back to that year of the tiger, goes back to Leo, goes back to the sovereign nature. Every node within the collective is a individual, authentic, sovereign node that makes up the whole. There's things that we're going to see with Rahu in Alcyon that are going to really be maybe shocking to people. exciting to other people. There may be curiosity, a desire to explore, but other people may be very like freaked out by what's going on down there, or they're not going to look at all, right? The individual psyche doesn't have any translucence to it at all, and therefore it's not even going to realize that there's a bottom to the boat. So it really depends on where you're at right now, but this is an incredible moment. And then the moon right from there comes into conjunction with Mercury. And this degree, speaking of the water, is about being a deserter from the Navy. It's the individual's realization through rejecting a collective status, which has become unbearable. This is really, by the end of today, there's going to be kind of like this, oh, I feel this now. And the moon conjunct Mercury, right, very simply is that your feelings are going to have a really easy time being verbally expressed or conceptualized. And it's going to be this moment of, oh, I'm done, right? There's that Four of Roses again. I'm done. I am repudiating the status of collective status, which has become unbearable, right? I am leaving behind the collective status that I have realized is not actually working for the best interest of the collective. And it's going to be a very seamless and easy, I think, realization and an expression, right? And being able to bring our feelings into a verbal or symbolic form. It's going to just be effortless. And it's going to have a lot to do with this trine as well and how we are experiencing it. So that's the astrology for today. So if you look at tomorrow, the moon will move through Aquarius. It's going to meet Saturn, right? Saturn, that now is a barometer for all of us, right? Time, space, the authority and the power of Saturn is really anchoring us as our own barometer of what to expect. So the moon is going to meet Saturn and really kind of stabilize our emotions and maybe even make them a little bit too dense, possibly, just depends. It can get really easy to be like, well, I see what's going to happen and get really caught into the density of that. So that's something to be aware of. The moon also in a square to Uranus before that. So the 10 to 11 degrees of Aquarius, again, is about being able to, if I remember correctly, if it's about being able to find inspiration from the quiet moments, which will be difficult with Uranus, of course, being the consistent agent of a shifting landscape in Taurus. So that square is going to bring that right back out again, as if we need more of that, but it is what it is, right? These are the geometric patterns and aspects that we can choose to align with, or we can choose to be in dissonance with. And the choice is always up to us. And what else is happening? So the moon will be moving through Aquarius, it will be in a sextile, of course, to Chiron as well. And so there'll be opportunities to really come from a much more aloof and detached emotional perspective with the moon in Aquarius to, again, look at those wounds of self and see ways that bring our vision into actual action without getting pulled off track by our own inner child wounding. I mean, Chiron is in Aries for a while. This is not going away anytime soon, but it's how we address these dynamics that makes the difference. So, and the moon will, like I said, move through Aquarius yesterday. It makes all of those aspects, and then it'll be in a sextile to Mars that is now in the second half of Sagittarius. So we'll go over all of that tomorrow in more detail, and certainly we'll be able to look at the reading as well. I hope everyone is doing well, and I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Like I said, just remember, I'm moving off Facebook, I'm moving off YouTube, I'm moving on to Twitch. I will certainly let you know. We'll keep doing the transmissions like we're doing until that process really gets a chance to be initiated. So I'll make sure that everybody knows. The thing about Twitch to remember is that you can subscribe directly to an individual's channel, which is a really great function. You can also be really involved in the chat and participate and contribute through all, Twitch is just set up to actually support the streamer based on their content in the channel. YouTube's not set up that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you can support people on Twitch, and there's a lot of different settings that I'm still going to have to go through and kind of decide what's going to be best for the audience and for subscribers and things like that. So just keep that in mind. These are things that are coming. And if you've left a review for me, thank you so much. And if I haven't checked in with you yet about your free reading or your free session, that is certainly coming. And if we have checked in, that'll be coming this week. And I'm so pleased to be able to offer that. I got such beautiful feedback from people, and I've put it up on the website, and it's so great. So if you want to go, you can go to the website. That's in the description box below, and you can check out the testimonials if you are questioning it all, or you're just curious to see what's going on. And that's available to you. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. Happy New Year. Happy 2022. We got this, right? We got this. We truly, truly do. I'm excited and ready to get on track myself. So it's going to be an interesting, first half of this year. That's for sure. And I'm looking forward to see you guys tomorrow for the transmission. Let me know if you need anything. Everything you need is in the description box below. Stick around at the end if you want to see how you can support this work directly. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. I love you. Have a blessed day. And yeah, have a great day.